July 2, 1943, Castel Vetrano Airfield, Sicily. The roar of the P-40 Warhawk sliced through the humid Sicilian air. Below, Axis soldiers scattered as tracer fire ripped into the Focke-Wulf 190's fuselage. In seconds, the German aircraft spiraled down, engulfed in flame. The man who pulled the trigger was First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, a 22-year-old pilot from Brazil, Indiana, and the first black American pilot in U.S. military history to shoot down an enemy aircraft. When Hall landed, the base erupted in disbelief. Ground crews, black mechanics and armorers who'd endured months of insults, cheered through tears. The swastika that Hall painted on his aircraft would become a symbol not just of victory, but defiance. Across the Mediterranean, German intelligence scrambled to understand what they had witnessed. A black pilot defeating one of their elite Luftwaffe fighters. In Nazi Germany, racial doctrine claimed that men like Hall were incapable of mastering machines or facing combat courageously. Yet here he was rewriting those very doctrines in the skies. His kill was the spark of something far greater, the rise of the Tuskegee Airmen, the 332nd Fighter Group whose courage would challenge not just Nazi ideology but the racism of their own homeland. Their story began not in battle but in the deep segregation of 1930s America. Military officials had declared that black men lacked the intellect for aviation. Yet pioneers like Eugene Bullard and Bessie Coleman proved otherwise, earning their wings overseas when no American flight school would take them. The dream of equality in the sky was born in defiance, not permission. But America wasn't ready for these pilots. Even as war clouds gathered, their struggle would move from training fields to the front lines of prejudice. Before they could fight the Germans, they had to fight for the right to fly. The road to the skies began on paper, not in the cockpit. In 1925, the U.S. Army War College released a damning report titled Employment of Negro Manpower in War. It concluded, compared to the white man, he is of inferior mentality, inherently weak in character. That single statement became official doctrine, one that locked thousands of capable young men out of the sky. But the winds of war would soon expose the hypocrisy. As Europe burned in the late 1930s, American leaders preached freedom abroad while denying it at home. Civil rights activists like Walter White, labor organizer A. Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Hasty fought Washington with words sharper than bullets, demanding the right for black men to serve as aviators. The black press fueled the fire. Newspapers like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier asked one searing question: how can America fight for democracy abroad while denying it at home? The pressure worked. On April 3, 1939, Public Law 18 cracked open the door, mandating that one or more flight schools include black pilots under federal training. It was progress wrapped in segregation, but it was a beginning. By 1941, the War Department finally yielded. The 99th Pursuit Squadron was born, the U.S. Army's first all-black flying unit, based at Tuskegee, Alabama. Its commander, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., understood what was at stake. A graduate of West Point, he had endured 4 years of total silence from white cadets who refused to speak to him. Now, he would lead 26 men whose failure could condemn an entire race, and whose success could change history. Their training was merciless. While white cadets flew 200 hours, the men of Tuskegee logged over 300. They practiced formation maneuvers until exhaustion, knowing that any error would confirm prejudice. Behind every engine roar lay the echo of generations denied dignity, and the promise that this time they would not be ignored. By 1943, their wings were earned, but respect was not. As they crossed the Atlantic into North Africa, the 99th Squadron carried not only their aircraft but the full weight of America's unfulfilled promise. April 1943, North Africa. The 99th Fighter Squadron arrived at Farjuna, Tunisia. Their aircraft were old, their welcome colder still. Colonel William Momire, commanding the 33rd Fighter Group, made his skepticism clear. They'll be good for patrols, nothing more. The Tuskegee pilots were assigned low-risk missions over the Mediterranean, a polite way of saying they weren't trusted. Their first mission came on June 2, 1943, an attack on the Italian-held island of Pantelleria. German fighters appeared suddenly, flashing in and out of cloud banks. The Tuskegee pilots held their formation. No panic, no breaks, just perfect discipline. The bombers made it home safely. No one was lost. It wasn't glorious, but it was flawless, the kind of professionalism the skeptics never expected. But on July 2nd, the skies over Castelvetrano Airfield, Sicily, turned history's page. Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, flying his 8th mission, spotted two Focke-Wulf 190s diving on B-25 bombers. He cut through the formation, turned inside the enemy, and fired. Tracers stitched across the German fuselage. The 190 exploded, tumbling in flames toward the Sicilian fields. Hall had just become the first black pilot in U.S. history to shoot down an enemy aircraft. When Hall landed, the airfield erupted. Black ground crews, men who had endured taunts from white soldiers, crowded around his Warhawk. The swastika painted on his fuselage became more than a victory mark. It was an answer to every insult, a rebuke to every racist theory, and a spark of pride that would ignite an entire generation. But triumph was short-lived. Colonel Momeyer's report soon followed, condemning the 99th as lacking aggressiveness and recommending their removal from combat. The order reached General Hap Arnold, who was ready to shut them down. The experiment, it seemed, had failed. But war has a way of testing lies against reality. And when the Germans launched their assault at Anzio, the so-called experiment would answer back, with gunfire, courage, and undeniable proof. January 1944. The beaches of Anzio, Italy, erupted under German artillery. Allied bombers screamed overhead, dropping supplies to the trapped invasion forces. Above them, 15 pilots of the 99th Fighter Squadron climbed into the sky in their worn-out P-40 Warhawks, underdogs facing the elite Luftwaffe. What came next would silence every critic. The Luftwaffe struck in waves, sleek Focke-Wulf 190s diving fast, guns blazing. The Tuskegee pilots held their formation and counterattacked. Over 2 days, the 99th shot down between 8 and 13 enemy aircraft. Charles Hall scored 2 more kills. When the dust settled, their kill count surpassed that of many veteran white units, all while flying inferior aircraft. Anzio changed everything. The War Department ordered a full performance review. The conclusion stunned the brass. The 99th performed as well as, and often better than, other P-40 squadrons. Overnight, the experiment became proof. Prejudice had been defeated not by speeches, but by skill, precision, and unflinching courage. By mid-1944, the 99th merged with 3 other squadrons, the 100th, 301st, and 302nd, to form the 332nd Fighter Group, under Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. Their new mission: bomber escort for the 15th Air Force, protecting B-17s and B-24s deep into Nazi Germany. Davis addressed his men. "Our job is not to be aces. Our job is to bring those bombers home." Then came a paint order that would make them immortal. Each group was given a color for identification. The 332 ND's choice: red. Red spinners, red nose bands, red tail sections. The skies of Europe would soon know the flash of crimson that bomber crews came to trust with their lives. Bomber crews didn't care about skin color, they cared about survival. The word spread: if you can get the red tails, request them. And from that moment forward, the red tail angels became legends. But the real test still awaited, in the skies over Berlin, where the Luftwaffe would unleash its deadliest weapon, the Me-262 jet fighter. And there, the red tails would prove that courage could outrun even the speed of sound. March 24, 1945. Over Germany's capital, the sky shimmered with contrails and fire. 43 P-51 Mustangs from the 332nd Fighter Group streaked toward Berlin, escorting bombers targeting the Daimler-Benz tank factory. Intelligence warned of something new: jet interceptors. The Messerschmitt Me-262, faster than any propeller-driven plane alive. The jets came screaming out of the sun, twin engines glowing like comets. But Lieutenant Roscoe Brown had studied their weakness: slow turns. "We let them overshoot, then cut inside their blind spot." Brown's Mustang caught a jet mid-bank. He fired 3 bursts. The Me-262 exploded, its pilot bailing out in a trail of smoke. 2 more German jets fell that day to Tuskegee guns. The Red Tails had destroyed more enemy jets in one mission than most groups did all war. For their heroism over Berlin, the 332nd earned the Distinguished Unit Citation. The enemy they had been told they'd never beat, the Luftwaffe, had been outflown, outfought, and outlasted. Not every mission ended in triumph. 32 pilots became POWs. Lieutenant Alexander Jefferson, shot down in 1944, recalled his shock at being treated as an equal in a Nazi prison camp. White American POWs thanked him for red tail protection, a thanks he had never heard at home. In Germany, I was just another American officer. Back home, I was a Negro again. By the war's end, the Tuskegee Airmen's record was unassailable. 1,578 missions, 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in combat, 150 more on the ground, 950 vehicles wrecked, 27 bombers lost compared to 46 average for other groups. They earned 96 distinguished flying crosses and the respect of every bomber crew they escorted. When they returned home, there were no parades. Segregation still stood. Yet their example changed the nation. In 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, integrating the U.S. military, a decision inspired in part by the Red Tails' excellence. Years later, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. became the Air Force's first black general. In 2007, aging Tuskegee Airmen stood before President George W. Bush to receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Fewer than 300 survived to see it. As one pilot said through tears, "We waited a lifetime for this." Their red tails had once cut through enemy skies, now they cut through time itself. They fought 3 wars, against fascism abroad, racism at home, and doubt in their own country's heart. They won them all. The Tuskegee Airmen did more than fly, they proved that valor and skill know no color. Every red-tailed fighter that soared through enemy fire carried the weight of history and the promise of a better America.